So next we're really going to start looking at what makes up synovial joints. Specifically, we're going to be looking at that joint cavity and how it allows for synovial joints to be freely movable or diarthrotic. When it comes to synovial joints, they all have the following. They have articular cartilage or hyaline cartilage on the ends of long bones. They have a space filled with synovial fluid, and that synovial fluid is actually produced by an inner synovial membrane, and that's there just to reduce friction between the articulating bone ends. There's also an articular capsule that has an inner and outer layer. The inner layer is that synovial layer that makes the synovial fluid, and the outer layer is more fibrous and kind of just structural in its components. And this would surround or envelop the synovial joint. There's also reinforcing ligaments and nerves and blood vessels. So that's just a quick kind of cheat sheet or general structure for synovial joints. But let's also look more closely at each one of these things. First, let's look at the articular cartilage. You were first introduced to articular cartilage when you learned about histology and the study of tissues, and you were looking at hyaline cartilage. Articular cartilage is just hyaline cartilage that is located at the ends of long bones. Now, it's there just to prevent the crushing of bone ends, it's there to reduce friction, and that's where we're going to find articular cartilage, just at the ends of long bones. It's going to be the remnant of cartilage that is left over after endochondral ossification. And then we also have a joint or synovial cavity, which is the hallmark for synovial joints. The joint or synovial cavity is just a space, but it is fluid filled, and it's filled with synovial fluid. We also have a capsule, basically a fibrous protective layer to define the joint cavity, to define the space. And it has that external fibrous layer of dense irregular connective tissue that is protective and structural in its components, and an inner synovial membrane of loose connective tissue that actually makes synovial fluid. Both the fibrous and synovial membrane, or the external and inner layers of the articular or joint capsule, are going to be well vascularized. They're going to have blood vessels. But other parts of a joint, whether it be fibrous or cartilaginous or synovial, are not going to be as well vascularized. The synovial fluid is a slippery fluid. It's made up of quite a lot of plasma, which is mostly water, and hyaluronic acid, which can hold on to that water, and it's there to lubricate and nourish the articular cartilage. It also contains phagocytic cells that can remove microbes and debris. There's also different types of reinforcing ligaments, some that are around the capsule, some that are more external to the capsule, some that actually kind of are deep to the capsule and go all around that synovial membrane. And of course, nerves and blood vessels are present. The nerves are there to detect pain, monitor joint position and stretch, and there's capillary beds that supply filtrate for the synovial fluid. And again, that synovial fluid is made by that inner layer of the articular capsule. So here are all the structures in an image. You can see the ligament on the outside. Not seen are the nerves and the blood vessels, but they would be present. The joint cavity is the space. It contains synovial fluid. We can see the layers of the capsule, both fibrous on the outside and the synovial membrane on the inside. And that capsule actually attaches to the outer membrane on a bone called the periosteum. And then we can see at the end of the top bone and the top of the bottom bone, that blue articular cartilage, which is hyaline cartilage that you find at the ends of long bones. So here's an actual look at a synovial joint and its joint capsule and cavity in a cadaver. So we are kind of exaggerating the actual space that you would find at a synovial joint. But this space between the bones and this multi-layer structural appearance for a joint is only seen in synovial joints. And it's this structure that makes joints that have a joint cavity so movable, so diarthrotic. Synovial joints also tend to have around them friction-reducing structures like bursae, which are flattened fibrous sacs that also have synovial fluid in them. You also have a tendon sheath, which is an elongated bursa that kind of wraps around a tendon. You think of a tendon kind of like a hot dog, think of the tendon sheath like the hot dog bun. Both of these structures are common where ligaments, muscles, skin, tendons, or bones rub together. Again, they're there to reduce friction, just like the synovial fluid in the joint cavities of synovial joints. So let's look at an image of a bursa. You can see the subacromial bursa over on the left. It's highlighted by a pink square. Again, it's just a sac, and it's a membranous sac filled in the center with synovial fluid. You can see there's a ligament on top and parts of the clavicle, and we're trying to prevent structures around the glenohumeral joint or shoulder joint from rubbing together and producing heat. So here we see that bursa working as a friction-reducing structure. You can also see on the far left, just a little bit below where the subacromial bursa is labeled, a tendon sheath. And it's wrapping around like the hot dog bun for the tendon, and that's the tendon of the long head of the biceps brachii muscle. And it would kind of go further down towards the biceps brachii, which is going to attach a little bit further down, kind of mid-humerus. All right, the next thing that we're going to be looking at is factors that influence the stability of synovial joints. And you can see here a quick list of what those factors that determine stability are. The shape of the two bone ends that fit together, the ligament number and their location, and probably the most important factor that determines the stability of joints to prevent dislocation, muscle tone. It's the most important. It keeps tendons taut as they cross joints, so it's going to be extremely important in reinforcing shoulder and knee joints specifically, the arches of the foot, but all joints in general that we consider synovial. So make sure to come back and watch that video as well.